choice. How do you want to spend your time? If you could spend it doing almost anything, but wasn't ready to retire. So we said we're going to travel the world, which we do. And we're going to leave America last. We want to see the rest of the world first. And when we're too old and crotchety, we'll get on, we'll rent an RV and see America.
Right.
Second, if we wanted to do something to keep our brains active, and that's where the website came. But then that goes back to your question. When you started building this website, you said, well, what do we want it to be? I said, well, I spent a lot of years in banking, living example of humanity. And I think that's obviously why our connection is so deep, but great human being. And she just does a lot of good things that a lot of people don't know about behind the scenes. You know, I mentioned nonprofits. She helps kids in need around the world. She's a guardian ad lit. I know I'll pronounce it guardian ad litem, and helps just does a lot of good work. So I got to mention her. My goodness.
You have a couple more you want to say? Just two more?
Oh, sure. Geez, let me just think about that. Yes. Carolyn, we can tuck so much underneath that. The website, obviously, Biz Catalyst 360, that brand's changed over the years. It wasn't always life, culture, and business. It's morphed over the years, and that's really a reflection of where, I don't know, the shifting world, the thinking mindsets out there. Our site started out as a business site primarily because that was our background. And then came the pandemic, and then came other things going on. And we said, wait a minute, the writing is shifting here. We don't want people to pigeonhole us as a site that you go to like Forbes, where it's all business. So we shifted it. And now most of our content is life, culture, and operations. And getting visibility and donations and sponsorships is not a big deal. If you're in Boise, Idaho, you don't have that. So what can we do? We can not only work with them, but we can amplify what they're doing and bring it back into 360 and showcase it on our global website and other ways. So treasure's nice, but the time and the talent really makes the big difference because it gives them more longevity.
Welcome to the Dr. Smiley Show. Starting to lose count of what episode we're on, but I'm so excited to be with Dennis Pitocco, and he has got a beautiful vision and a very expansive mission to get 360 degrees of the world. And tell us why you actually picked that name, Dennis.
Because you touched upon it right there. 360 gave us the full circle of the world, and we felt like 360 Nation, you could tuck so many wonderful things under that without pigeonholing a specific channel. And we were lucky because the name really resonated with a lot of people, and we have spread our wings quite far under that banner.
How many people are working under the 360 banner?
Well, it's interesting. We have a very small team, which is my wife, myself, and we've got some interns. What we've done over the years is we've gone out to local colleges here in the Tampa Bay area and said, look, you're in the media studies program. We will share with you our wisdom of how we do and what we do. And this is live and this is real, and you can see it in action, and you're studying this business. The trade-off is you provide us with your wisdom as a young people, keeping us sharp, talking to us about social media. So we're constantly exchanging wisdom from two different generations or three different generations. We learn, they learn, they're happy, and it's a constant rotation because they go on to graduate, and here comes some more. So it's been a great way to supplement our resources. But we've done so much, Ken, to automate what we do primarily because my wife and I travel that it's not resource heavy to do what we do. It's more thinking and creating heavy. You know, you can do that anywhere. You can do that on an airplane. You can do that whenever.
And you have a substantial amount of writers that you're serving.
We do. We have got over 1,200 writers on 6 continents. Our goal in life has been for the last few years to find just one person that can write in Antarctica. And we would be dancing in the streets so we can then say on every continent.
Well, I can tell you enthusiastically. If we can find someone to sponsor me, that's the only continent I haven't been to. So I would be more than happy to go there, represent you.
Well put, my friend. I've actually, there's a lot of, we've traveled up that way on a cruise, and a lot of expeditions up there, Ken, that are, the British expedition, the Australian, they're there for 6 months. I've actually written to those expeditions saying, you don't have to be a writer, just give me one paragraph on what it's like to live up there. I'm still waiting for a response.
Well, now that I know that that's out in the open and that's what you want, it's surprising when you have a good Rolodex of people that are well connected. I'm at 14,000 LinkedIn, but I really do connect with people I either meet or that are speakers or
Yep.
that I want to meet. So I would say that there's a reasonable chance, Dennis, I might pleasantly surprise you with a contact.
Well, you will see me virtually dancing in the street, my friend.
Well, since you have an ask, I'll do an ask. I've done this ask several times on my show, but I feel like the more you ask, the more you manifest. So Malcolm Gladwell is someone I'd like to have on this show this year. And the reason why is in my 60th book, I give him credit for having 4 books that really shaped how my theories and philosophies of doing business, but more importantly, impact are achieved. Tipping Point, Outliers are 2 of my favorites, but David and Goliath. I mean, every single book he's done, I read it, I digest it audible. So if you have a contact for Malcolm, you can pleasantly surprise me, and I will not virtually, I will literally dance in the streets.
I'm just making a note because it's amazing how some of these things turn into reality. So I'll be mindful of that, my friend.
Yeah, and I'll get your brand, and I will dance in the street with your brand. So
Just
this show is unpredictable in that we just had 2 conversations we didn't plan to have, and that's kind of the Larry King approach. But I want the audience to know who you are, who's the man behind the vision. And so let's take a nice little deep dive as to one, where you were born and what your childhood was like.
okay. I was born in Pittsburgh. I'm one of 8 children, Italian Catholic family, all grew up in Pittsburgh. My father worked for the city of Pittsburgh, if you will, and because of the size of the family, um, he worked 3 jobs. Classic case of the father you never saw, but you felt his presence.
Hmm.
His presence to me, Ken, was knowing my mother saying, "Wait till your father gets home." And then when we heard his keys jingling, it's like coming to attention. Dad's here. So
Wow.
you kind of changed your approach. So anyhow, we all grew up there. What's interesting about us all growing up in Pittsburgh, and this is back when Pittsburgh was kind of known as the steel town.
Right.
You walk outside and there's that orange dust. There are no longer steel mills in Pittsburgh. It's become a very contemporary, very clean city. But every single one of us, except one brother, left Pittsburgh and never went back to live. All my brothers and I joined the various armed forces. I was in the Air Force and ended up settling in Philadelphia and then moving around the world in the banking career. But we all left Pittsburgh and went back to visit, but never to settle down there. And
Hmm.
so now we're all spread literally around the country. Very close family still. We're not exactly the Waltons, but we'd like to think so.
And Tampa's a beautiful area to live.
Yes, and can I just say, people say, "Well, why are you living in Tampa?" I said, "Because I lived in Pittsburgh." And I say that truly because I worked in banking, and I so happened at sometime in my banking career, which was about 30 years long, I actually transferred to a bank in Pittsburgh. So it was interesting. I was working in the town I grew up in almost by accident and having a relationship with my parents that I never had because you're kind of around the corner then versus around. And but 2 or 3 years into that job, the bank I was with was very interested in moving into different businesses, and they sent me to Tampa, which I'd never been out to Tampa, to look at a business they wanted to buy. And when I got off that airplane, Ken, coming out of a Pittsburgh winter and getting off that airplane and that warm breeze and those palm trees, I finally figured out where I wanted to end up because you maybe don't really know where you want to live sometime. And I could live anywhere. So I said, someday I'm going to find my way here. And literally almost 5 years to the day, I moved to Florida and never looked back.
Well, I have yet to meet you, but at least Tampa's an easy place to get to for
Oh,
me.
yeah, that's true. That's
And I don't know if you know Dr. Brian Kent or Dave Van Hoos or Dr. Tanya Lee, but those are several of my clients. And I get down to events down there, so I will let you know. But I'm sure it's going to be sometime around April. I get to see you and meet you.
Please do. I don't know those names, but there's just nothing like virtual's nice and Zoom is there's just nothing like that face-to-face meeting.
Well, and also, I'm just tired of giving you virtual hugs. That's the biggest thing. All right. So your childhood obviously opened your eyes. You went in the military. What was there something in your childhood that happened that caused you to have this vision of the 360 Nation?
No, no, actually, nothing in my childhood, but my business career probably, I'm jumping over a few things. Let me just say, I spent 30 some years in banking around the world, ended up opening businesses, started a company, started one in England, met my wife in England, sold that company.
What was that company?
It was a mortgage company based here in Tampa.
Okay.
And, but we expanded into Canada, we expanded in the UK, and I traveled the world because of it. And then after we did all that, it's like the dog chasing the car, Ken. You caught the car. Now, what are you going to do with it? We were settled here in Tampa, relatively young. We had something that very few people have, the opportunity to make a choice. How do you want to spend your time? If you could spend it doing almost anything, wasn't ready to retire. So we said we're going to travel the world, which we do. We're going to leave America last. We want to see the rest of the world first. And when we're too old and crotchety, we'll get on, we'll rent an RV and see America.
Right.
Second, if we wanted to do something to keep our brains active, and that's where the website came. But then that goes back to your question. When you started building this website, said, well, what do we want it to be? I said, well, I spent a lot of years in banking and business doing a lot of research. I want it to be a site that I wouldn't mind visiting every morning, which means no pop-ups, no sales pitches, no newsletters, just good information, or as we call it, good stuff. And that was the theory. And I want to give my writers the ability to write whatever they want to write in however many words, as often as they want, or as infrequent. I want to take away all the guidelines that many writers are restricted when they write for Huffington Post or Forbes, and we'll see what happens. Now, that was just a theory. And here it is, 12 years, 13 years later, we've won 3 awards. We got 1,200 writers. Something hit, it opened the door to a lot of good people. But then in building it, when 360 Nation came about, we started talking about values, what's important to us. Well, part of it was giving back. And I don't mean just writing checks, Ken. I'm talking about literally getting on the street, helping the homeless, delivering meals. We've been doing all that. I've been on the boards and all that. And we wanted to bring doing more good, if you will, into our world. So the website was a platform that gave us community over the years. It kept building and building. And then 360 Nation became the umbrella under which we tucked the publishing. We now have studios where we produce 4 good movies, for lack of a better term. And the third thing we did, which I touched upon briefly, is we wanted to give our nonprofit commitment and that community more visibility. So we created a standalone website, which is connected to 360 Nation. It's called Good Works 360. A lot of people don't know about it. But the ethos behind it was we want to be able to say to any good nonprofit anywhere in the world, if you need help from a consulting perspective, we will help you and there'll never be an invoice. And we're doing that for 5 years now. We've done 30 some engagements around the world. Our first one was in India, and it's all virtual. We've got 4 dozen people around the world that stepped up and said, I can't give the time to nonprofits that you can give, Dennis, because I've got a job, I've got family, blah, 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 but I can give you my time. So we'll contract with them for 3 hours, an expert on social media, and they will connect them with a nonprofit in Boise, Idaho that needs help. Anyhow, those are the 3 things that kind of form 360 Nation, but it was all centered on doing it for good, not for profit.
Yeah, well, I have we can go in a lot of directions with that one because I have a theory about goodness, and the more good you're doing in the world, the more impact you're creating, the more abundance you receive because of the karma effect. You obviously know this card, and I'll be honoring you with this card when I meet you. But the top part of the card, we amplify goodness.
Oh, wow.
And then it says here, publishing of positive leaders.
Well, there's the synchronicity in our discussion or our meeting it all together.
Yes.
Ken, because we know a lot of good people behind the scenes. And I just think sometimes I'll have discussions, whether it be with you, with other people we know, and you don't quite know, you don't really necessarily have an immediate, how can we collaborate? But you know that there's something there. And then it circles back later, almost like we're talking today. And we wouldn't have had we not been introduced by somebody, what, 2, 3 months ago.
Yes, and let's give a shout out to her. I was just about to say that. So I'm a big proponent of, if you have a connection, thank the connector as often as you can, because that connection changed your life and they caused it. So Amy Kardashian, she is
Oh, yeah.
she's a huge fan of you. And
Mm.
here's what's interesting. I gave her the biggest gift I think she needed, which was her best connection. That was with Dr. Michelle Mraz.
Oh, okay.
And Dr. Michelle Mraz, when they became like sisters, I mean, immediately, Amy said, "Well, what can I do to thank Ken?" And Dennis was the gift.
Oh, isn't that nice?
Isn't that cool?
Very thoughtful.
Yeah. So let's give some shout outs, since we just did a shout out for Amy Kardashian. Let's give some shout outs to some of your article writers. And I had said before the show that I would be very open to having some of your writers that really contributed a lot and also are definitely in the vein of good stuff, good work, being on the show and us kind of giving them some extra exposure. So, did you have any writers that you wanted to just give
Oh
a
my. Oh
shout out?
my.
And by the way, we're going to have so many shows. Don't feel confined.
Yeah.
Just name a couple right now, but it's just
Well,
saying thank you.
yes, the very first one that comes to mind is a lady named Melissa Hughes. And I mentioned Melissa, not only has she become a good friend, a lot of our writers start out writers and then they progress into friendships because it goes beyond the writing. And a lot of it, because we get drawn into their thinking. By occupation, she's a neuroscience nerd, as she calls herself. But as a human being, she is just a walking, living example of humanity. And I think that's obviously why our connection is so deep. But great human being. And she just does a lot of good things that a lot of people don't know about behind the scenes. You know, I mentioned nonprofits. She helps kids in need around the world. She's a guardian ad lit. I know I'll pronounce it guardian ad litem, and helps just does a lot of good work. So I got to mention her. My goodness.
You have a couple more you want to say? Just two more?
Oh, sure. Geez, let me just think about that. Yes, Carolyn Lebanowski. Carolyn is a native of Texas, and about 3 years ago, she moved to Portugal. I'm happy to say my wife and I were traveling. We actually met her on her turf in Portugal about 2 months ago. She's one of those rare people, Ken, that when you say writing from the heart, that's what she does. And I hold her out as an example to many people because they don't quite understand what heart-based storytelling looks like. I send them a link to her writing. So Carolyn, another good human being, met her years ago through a friend of a friend of a friend, and she wasn't a writer at the time. But I said, look, dip your toe in the water. It could be poetry, it can be prose, it can be whatever's on your heart. And she dipped her toe, and my goodness, she's become such a prolific writer since then. It's just amazing.
And do you have a final one you'd like to share?
Yeah, a lady named Charlotte Wittenkamp. She's based in California, and that's Charlotte's talent is she's just always curious. And when I say that, I don't mean just in her writing. She writes a lot about things that she's been, I'm not going to use the word inspired by, things she's read from other people, and she'll bring them into the writing to give them their kudos. But she's not only curious in her writing, she's probably one of the most prolific engagers. You know, on social media, as we know, there's a million articles out there.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the best affirmations you can give to a writer is not just like it, but dig in and talk to her.
Right.
She talks to everybody, and when people say, "What do you mean by engagement?" I give them Charlotte. I said, "Watch what she does," and that's what I mean by engagement. And she's not just patronizing people when she engages; she is digging in, and very often by her questions, inspiring another article to be written by that person because they never looked at their own thinking that way.
That's great. Uh, so those three people I will say would be great candidates to join our show in the future.
Sure,
You're a
sure,
writer as well, and you sent me a book, and this show is not about that
yeah.
particular deep dive. But I did want to acknowledge that not only did you write a book, but you wrote a book that's fascinating about a journey that changed your life. And I would like, first of all, thank you for sending me the book.
Sure.
And secondly, if you'll just take 2 minutes to say why you chose that. That was your first book, right?
Yeah, and I'm going to correct you on that. Everybody says never correct somebody accusing me of being a writer. I'm not a writer by background. I've always taken the position that my job or our job is to amplify the visibility of our writers, and I don't want to compete with them. But this book is different. I won't go deep into it, but my wife and I had the luxury, if you will, of checking out of the world for 6 weeks last year, and we spent 40 days and 500 miles, or as my wife will say, 1.3 million steps, walking the entire Camino de Santiago from France over to Spain. It was the single most transformational experience in our lives, and I'm not exaggerating. But it got to the point, without getting into the book itself, we came back. I said to my wife, people are asking us, how did it go? What's it all about? I wrote a quick article, Ken, maybe 1,200 words, say, just to kind of satisfy them. But I said to my wife, I can't
Hmm.
capture this in one article. So
Right.
I stopped. I'm going to do something I've never done. We're going to write a book together. And we're going to do it by the end of the year. And we're going to do it for two reasons. Number one, I don't want to lose what we learned. And it's like a journal. We're going to put it into book format for us, selfishly. And we'll put it out there on Amazon and places because we want other people who don't want a travel log. They want to know what happens there through the eyes of somebody that did it. And that's where the book came from.
And I owe you a huge apology. So, first of all, I'm so sorry for accusing you of being a writer. That was that was rude of me. I don't know where my mind was.
uh, well, there won't be
So
any
the reason I
sequel.
don't want to do that show right now is I was dabbling in my mind about a show where two people wrote a book and they had such a massive shift and transformational spiritual everything, and that was Gordon Bernhardt, who also wrote the Grand Camino. And did you guys talk? I put you.
No,
You never talked. Okay, so
no, we did. We connected, reached out. We haven't talked yet.
okay, well, this is Gordon right here, and he is a wealth management person in DC. Uh, Biggest heart ever, and he had me come to the Tyson's Corner City Club, and he presented me with one of his signed
Oh
books.
boy.
And he's just such a wonderful man. I think the two of you intellectually will have a phenomenal conversation, but I think spiritually and also the journey that pulled you, it was such a big deal to him. I mean, he wrote really a book, and I have to be a little more careful because I just called him a writer, and he could come after me too. So I'm just going to be a little careful about throwing
Well,
writer
I,
business.
just to close that notion, I don't know how you can walk what he walked and what we walked without sharing that with the universe in some form. It doesn't have to be a book, but geez, just simply a remarkable experience.
Yeah, so I think that's a cool little show that we'll do because you haven't talked to him, and you guys will be talking live about that experience. That's going to be pretty interesting, I think.
I think it is. That'd be a great partnership, and because his experiences will be different than ours,
Yeah,
but
so
there's a commonality of camaraderie, and I think he'll understand that immediately.
I agree. So I'll reach out to him after the show and see if we can get something for March. All right.
That'd be wonderful.
And Gordon actually told me that there's only one day in the year that is an order, and so I'm going to see if I can get him to do that show on that day. What's the day that is an order? There's a one birthday that is an order.
That is in order.
That is an order. Like, so you know how May May 4th, they kid around and say May the 4th be with you.
Yes. Oh,
Okay. So that's not an order, and that's not even a direct sentence. You're actually using a for and making it fourth. May the force be with you. May the fourth be with you. This is literally an order.
don't know.
Verbally. It's March 4th. March 4th.
Uh,
And that's Gordon's birthday.
isn't that funny?
So we'll see if we can do a quick turnaround. I mean, this would be how interesting to have you on a show today that we talk about this, and his birthday's like next week.
Yeah, yeah. I never thought about the idea of having a conversation. I mean, obviously want to talk to him, but to kind of bounce off each other, our experiences would be interesting for both of us, and I would think to the audience.
I agree, and it also gets me in good stead with you after that accusation I made. I just want.
It'll take more than that. Just don't look for a sequel to the book.
Fair enough. So, beautiful branding. I like the brand you're wearing. There's four boxes. Can't see
Yep.
intricate. I can't see the intricate part of it, but I see
Yeah.
it very. It's very well thought out. So, tell me about that brand.
Well, it's all again back to 360 Nation. The colors aren't necessarily significant. It's more the tagline because I've always been a believer that it's like the old elevator pitch where they say if you can't describe what you do on the back of a business card, you really don't know what you do. Our brand is 360 Nation, but right underneath it is Humanity Rediscovered, and that's what we do. And as I said earlier, you can tuck so much underneath that. The website, obviously, Biz Catalyst 360, that brand's changed over the years.
Hmm.
It wasn't always life, culture, and business. It's morphed over the years, and that's really a reflection of where, I don't know, the shifting world, the thinking mindsets out there. Our site started out as a business site primarily because that was our background. And then came the pandemic, and then came other things going on. And we said, wait a minute, the writing is shifting here. We don't want people to pigeonhole us as a site that you go to like Forbes, where it's all business. So we shifted it. And now most of our content is life, culture, and business in that order. It wasn't always that way. The third is Good Works 360, and that's clearly our nonprofit brand. And that's just because we like to do good work around the world.
Well, I'd like you to have a conversation with me and take advantage of the fact that you know so much about this. We are plugging away, going to 50 cities, and we want to spread not the card and not the movement, but the honoring of people that bring smiles to the world. And we
Oh,
we call it what's your SPH, and SPH is what are your smiles per hour. So the people with the highest SPH, smiles per hour, we want to honor them, show the world that these people exist and that they're a true inspiration for how you can play bigger too. And by the way, I wanted to talk to you about the contribution you said earlier. You said people. I had someone very eloquently put. There's three things you can give to a nonprofit, and all of them we welcome, and especially if you combine them. But it's time, treasure, talent,
yep.
and
We do that in different order, time, talent, and treasure, because we want people to know writing a check is important, obviously, every nonprofit, but we want that to be the third thing, because
mm,
I think what they need, and I've learned this from chairing nonprofits, most of the employees in some of the smaller nonprofits, not the giant ones that everybody know, like the National, the Red Cross and all that, they don't need our help. They don't need our donation the way the small guys do. What the small guys need very often, the person running it, they need somebody like me or you that has just business experience to be a
mm,
sounding board for them. So
right.
that's my time and my talent. And beyond that, most of them are driven by volunteers, as you know, and they may come into the nonprofit and be work for them, but they just don't have the skills that a normal small business would have. And as we both know, that is what a nonprofit, it's a small business
Mm-hmm.
without the core talent. And that's where we can bring in Good Works and say we can supplement that talent. And while we're doing it, we're going to amplify your visibility because we've learned, particularly, I mentioned Boise, Idaho. I kind of kid people because you could have the greatest nonprofit in the world. If it's in Tampa, you've got all these big corporations, and you getting visibility and donations and sponsorships is not a big deal. If you're in Boise, Idaho, you don't have that. So what can we do? We can not only work with them, but we can amplify what they're doing and bring it back into 360 and showcase it on our global website and other ways. So treasure's nice, but the time and the talent really makes the big difference because it gives them more longevity.
Well, just to show you how much I believe in your word, um, I don't know if you can see it, but my license plate says amplify.
No, oh my, oh
So
my,
amplify to me is such an important word because if you see good and you're amplifying it, you're spreading the word. And
exactly. So yeah,
so I know we had a bit of an uncomfortable, abrasive part of the show with me accusing you of being a writer, but I'd like to, with your permission this time, take a stab at those four colors that you have on your.
okay,
So, so you said I mean, they mean something to me. So
okay,
what I see is I see the green, kind of the earth, the health, the life that brings life. That's why I see the green.
okay,
I see the yellow as the sun and the positive energy and just the energy flow of the 360. I see the purple as the significance of royalty, but leaders shaping the world, the leadership quotient. And then orange, I see just saying, "Orange, you glad I had those other three colors?" Because I don't have anything for orange.
I'm gonna steal everything you just said, and I'm gonna tell people that was the original theory behind choosing colors.
I feel like I've redeemed myself for that accusation.
You have. You have. I'm going to borrow that. If it goes over well, I'm going to take full credit. If
I
not, I'm
hope
going
you
to say, well,
do.
some guy named Ken said that.
So, if I can do something like that, it just makes me so happy because it's a gift that I'm actually able to throw out there. So I hope it works. But I
Yeah, good.
I see so much meaning in it. When I saw the colors, I didn't know the orange, but the other three colors meant a lot to me.
Yeah. Well, good for you. Thank you for that.
So, in kind of a wrap up, I have these five questions I like to ask, and I'm pretty sure you may know them, but it's we'll see how we do here. And it's fast question, fast answer. This is what I consider the programming of the human. Okay.
Okay.
So, like I said, elaboration, not so much, more just the
Okay.
okay. Um, what book changed your life?
A little book. In fact, it's a book I read probably 25, 30 years ago, and it turned out it was a tiny one, and I was never a book reader. Small one. It's called Too Soon Old, Too Late Smart by a guy named Gordon Livingston. He was a doctor, he was a military guy, and it's 30 things or 30, I think he called it 30 true things you need to know right now. And it's the answer to the question, really. If you could share wisdom with your 18-year-old self, what would you say? Well, he took that into a book format. I think it was back in like 2004. I've given that book to so many people on the years because it's timeless and it's a quick read and it can wake you up just sitting there for an hour and going cover to cover.
On my reading list. What a great book to give a kid.
Exactly. A kid and actually some adults at any level that look like they're looking for something more and they're not quite grounded and their compass is off. Say, just take this, read it, and it
Is,
can change your life.
is the author still around?
He wrote a second book. I don't know. That's an excellent question. I know he wrote a follow-up book. Don't know if he's around, but it's Gordon Livingston.
Well, wouldn't it be something if we find out that he's the one that's in Antarctica and we get to visit him?
Oh my goodness. Talk about synchronicity. Well, it's a common sense wisdom book, and boy, we need that these days. It's not
Yes,
that
we do.
complicated.
Yeah, I don't know who said it, but common sense is not so common.
Amen to that.
All right, so, number two, what movie inspires you? And anytime you get stuck and you say, "Well, it's really between one or two," you can give them both. It doesn't matter.
Inspires me. I'm not sure I'd use that word, but tucked under my favorite and probably as inspirational as Forrest Gump.
Yeah,
The history of the 50s to the 70s, and you got this guy that's got an IQ in his 70s, and I think he was based in, I don't know, Arkansas or some Alabama, I'm sorry. And it's a walk through history, and it's one of those movies that you get entranced in. I was lost in, and that was, as you know, many years ago. And it always resonated with me, just the warm and fuzzy Sunday afternoon movie.
talk about synchronicity. Yesterday, I did New York Times. I like to do New York Times mind teasers, and
Yeah.
there's about seven different ones, and one of them was a word search where, the theme was "Life is like a box of chocolates."
Oh, wow. Wow.
That
Back
was
to
last.
synchronicity, my friend.
Yeah, that is. Third question: either a song that gets you going, or a favorite artist, music.
Song that gets me going, unquestionably, always has been since I was a young kid by the Beach Boys. It's called It's a Beautiful Morning. I'm sorry, by the Young Rascals, not the
Oh,
Beach Boys.
yes, I was
Young
going to say I didn't know that they did a version.
No, no, Young Rascals. And I know that song because when I joined the Air Force, my first assignment, now this is back during the Vietnam era where people are going to Vietnam, they're going to the Philippines, they're going to all these crazy places. I'm a little one striper, Ken. I've got no rank to go anywhere. And they said, put on your form where you would like to go. Well, everybody says Hawaii and two other places. I went to Hawaii. I spent my entire career in Hawaii and fell in love with the climate. And it's a beautiful morning. And that song was hot back then. It was in the 70s, and that's just been my wake up song. I've actually had it as music on my iPhone as an alarm.
I don't know if it is on the double CD soundtrack of Forrest Gump, but it's a song that belongs on there. It's for sure. It was
Oh, amen. Amen.
what a great soundtrack too. That
It's the song and it's the lyrics,
right.
and wow. And so, yes,
Yeah,
easy.
and the melodic, just beautiful
Yes.
music. Yeah, it's really beautiful.
Yep.
Um, bonus question for you because I did fail to ask this earlier. Name two or three of your favorite countries you visited.
England, not just because my wife lives there, but because when you peel back what everybody talks about the terrible weather, it is one of the most gorgeous countries I've ever walked through in the sunshine. Probably because of all the rain.
Yeah,
But
very lush.
Walk through London on a sunny day, two things you see, not only all the blooming trees and flowers, but you see people coming out of the office buildings in droves laying in the park. They're just thirsting for sun.
That's
So
awesome.
that would be my absolute.
Did you go to bloody Scotland?
No. Oh no, I'm sorry. Yes. Yeah, I'm sorry. I did. I'm sorry, I mistook your accent there, but yes,
Well, I'm not the best at accents.
one through. Anyhow, so yeah, England, without question, just our favorite place to go. And the fact that my wife's there helps, but just a gorgeous country. And the history, they've done something we haven't done in America. They've preserved it.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the architecture, the protected buildings. The biggest challenge over there is they're running out of country. Too many people, squeezed into a country smaller than the state of Texas.
Well, I think we should just go ahead and invite some of them over here. They're good people.
Yes, absolutely.
Whenever I'm on a cruise ship on an English cruise ship, I always raise my glass and I go to the motherland.
If you're on a British cruise ship with a bunch of Brits raising glass, you're going to raise that glass a lot of times.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Did you ever want to go to Antarctica?
We've actually been there on a cruise because obviously you can't necessarily go onto the continent, but only from a.
Used to be able to. You used to be able to put on the booty boots, and there was a specific area so you could say you put your feet on.
Last time, this was about 4 years ago, they wouldn't allow
No,
that.
they
You
don't.
could you could get on a chartered ship and get to the shore, but everything was just so controlled because naturally they're concerned about any level of pollution, however you want
Right.
to call it.
Yeah, so it was about roughly 20 years ago, or maybe a little more. I had an opportunity. It was just it wasn't fitting the itinerary very well, but I wanted so much to say that was my seventh continent, and you could get on the land. You got there for an hour. No, it was less than an hour, probably 30 minutes to an hour, and then you get back on. And you said, "I did it." No, it's really crazy. Um, so, what's a country you do want to go to?
China.
China?
We've had that on our list for years because we were set to go there. In fact, all of the Asian region, but China was particularly of interest to us. And then came the pandemic, and then came all the restrictions, and the cruise we had booked was canceled. And we're just waiting for the right itinerary to go there, but we will go there. We've covered most of the world, but that region was literally stopped because our cruise would have covered it all. It was like 120 days.
Right. Yeah, isn't that a great cruise? I did the 57 and I did it through China from Japan to
Oh,
South Africa.
well, then you're covering the same ground that we're looking to cover. So it's just a question of when,
Yeah.
not if, but it's got to be the right itinerary.
Well, I will tell you, reserve a travel agent told me a trick. Whenever you have a thing like Italy or something, go 2 or 3 days early before you hop on the ship so you get to enjoy the city a little bit. But
Yep.
China, if you go there 3 days, 4 days early, you must get a flight to Xi'an, Xian, China. That is where the terracotta warriors are.
Ooh.
And it is pristine. The they preserved it. It is just architecturally gorgeous. It's spiritually uplifting.
Mm.
It is one of those things where you pinch yourself and go, "Wow, a place like this exists." So you'll love Xi'an. Question number 5 is, who's your hero?
My wife.
Okay. Final question. What quote do you live by?
Pardon me?
What quote do you live by?
Oh, yeah. I can't think of who wrote it, but there's one that I gravitate uh, always to, and that's the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Carl Jung. In fact, Jung said that. And I say that because I think both my wife and I would say we are privileged to have arrived. We know who we are. Didn't
Mm,
always know that. And then once you figure that out, boy, you can spread your wings and do so many good things.
Yeah, that's the synchronicity too. So I have a theory, and I was going to share it earlier, but it is coming about because of what you just said. Is the theory is that the more you love yourself to become the person you wish and want to be, the more you give yourself the gift of a big purpose that can change the world.
Oh, wow. Well, you just connected the dots here, my friend. Good for you.
Well, I noticed it when my mom passed. Is that how big do I want to play afterwards? And I had to really do a lot of work on myself to become the person that would actually hold that mission or that purpose. And I see how big and how many people you've attracted. I mean, 1,200 writers, and I hope I'm not going to get any problems by saying writers to them.
Just 1,200 angry people, of course.
I know. You know, I want to be a writer for you because I want you to, from now on, in an interview, say we have 1,201 Dr. Smiley's.
Get me that one in Antarctica, and we might actually open the door for you, my friend.
I hope so. I hope so. Dennis, you're a wonderful friend, and I look forward to seeing you in a month or two. We're going to cross our fingers, toes, that Gordon can share the stage with you on his.
That would be neat.
It's short notice, so I'm just going to see what he thinks about March, but I would like to do it on his birthday because I think it would mean a little more.
That I can't think of who he'd rather spend his birthday with than you and me.
I agree.
I'm
All
glad we
right.
spoke, my friend.
Well, Peter, you've shared how people can connect with you. Is there anything else you wanted to? Is there another place that they can follow you, connect with you?
Well, obviously on LinkedIn, but I said just come to our website, which is bizcatalyst360.com, and that will lead you into 360 Nation and Good Works and everything else I've spoken.
All right. Well, have a beautiful day. Stay amplified with goodness, and we'll see you again soon because you have a 360 that I want to keep turning around. All right.
Thanks.
Have a great day. Bye bye.